Hey everyone, in this video, we're going to deploy a Django project on AWS. So there's a few different ways we could do this, but for this tutorial, we're going to keep it very simple. We're just going to deploy it just into an EC2 instance. So before you get started, you'll need to make sure you have an AWS account that you can access to deploy on. And we'll stick to everything that's in the free tier, so you shouldn't have to pay anything if it's within your first year. Just make sure to shut it all down before your free tier period goes up. And for this project, we're going to go ahead and use the blog tutorial we did previously. So I have a new repo here created for this deployment, and this will be linked in the description. So if you want to pull this code down or clone this down, you can do that for this deployment. But let's go ahead and get started. So once you have an account created, this may not be here. You may have to come here to services. You should be able to find EC2. You can search for it if you can't find it. And what EC2 will allow us to do is allow us to run a virtual machine on AWS. So it's very similar to like the DigitalOcean or other deployments you may have done before. So this will be very similar if you're familiar with all of that. And in a future video, I may go through some other ways to deploy using different services instead of putting it all just on an EC2 instance. But if you want to see that, let me know. But for this, we're going to keep it all within just this one service. So to get started with this, we can click on instances running, and it will give us a list of instances we have running right now, which is 0. So to create a new instance, what we can do is we can go here to launch instance, and this will give us a way to launch a new one. I'm going to call this one just Django blog, and then you'll see down here we can pick an OS image. You'll hear it called an AMI, which is just an Amazon machine image. And for this example, we're going to use Ubuntu. So I'll click on Ubuntu, and we'll keep it at the most recent version of 22.04. The rest of this is fine. For our instance type, make sure you pick T2 micro. That will be the one that's free tier eligible. This is just kind of determining the amount of memory and the CPU, just the actual resources available to the instance we're creating. And for this example, T2 micro will be just fine. For the key pair, you may have to go here and create a new key pair, and you can enter the name here, create the file, and you'll want to make sure you save that file somewhere you can access it by. I have one already created, so I'm going to choose my key pair I have created. Next, we have our network settings, and we want to make some changes here. So first, we'll go ahead and check allow HTTPS and allow HTTP. We're going to change this SSH traffic from anywhere to my IP. So this just means I can only SSH to it from this IP address and not from anywhere else in the internet. And if you need more IP addresses, you can set a custom, but for this example, mine is just fine. Next, we'll go up here and we'll hit edit. And this will give us the ability to add more. So we want to go ahead and add 2 more security group rules. So the first one will be a custom TCP, and the port will be 8000. And this will be the port we run Django on. We'll keep it the default port of 8000. And so in the description, I'll put Django, just so I know what this is for. And then for the source, we want to add a CIDR block of all zeros, as well as an additional : :/0. So make sure you select those 2. And then we'll add an additional security group here. And this will be a custom TCP again. And this one will be 5432. 5432. And this will be for our Postgres database. So we can do PostgreSQL. And once again, 00 and : :0, like that. And that should be it for our security groups. So we want to make sure we have the ability to access it through SSH so we can actually set everything up. We want to be able to access it through HTTPS and HTTP as well, so we can actually use the app from the internet, as well as we want our Django and our Postgres stuff set up as well. Okay, so that's all good. Next, we can go down, and I think that might be it. Looks good to me. We'll go ahead and click Launch Instance. Give it a second for this to finish. Okay, so now we have our instance launched. We can click on it here, this link, and it will open up a new tab here with our Django blog, and it's still loading right now. But we can go ahead and get started setting this whole thing up. Okay, so the first thing we'll need to do is actually connect to this instance. And so if we click on an instance here, click on connect, this will give you the information you need to SSH into it. So it gives you kind of like a step here. My key pair has already been made, so I don't need to worry about this. But if you're creating it the first time, you need to make sure you run chmod 400 on that PIM key or on that PIM file. And then you can go ahead and just copy this line down here. It's ssh-i, whatever you have here, copy that and run that to connect to it. So I'm gonna do that real quick. And make sure you are in this, you're located, the location of where you're at in your terminal is where that file is at as well. So it knows where to find it. Okay. And we will go ahead and connect here. And now we're in. So now we have just our Ubuntu server here, and we can get started with setting things up. So you'll see here we have a user named Ubuntu already, and I'm gonna go ahead and just use that user to set everything up with. You can go ahead and create a new user and go through that normal server setup if you want to, but for now, I'm gonna go ahead and just use that one user. So let's start with our firewall. So we'll do a UFW or a sudo UFW app list. And you'll see we have OpenSSH available. We're gonna go ahead and do UFW allow OpenSSH. Sudo that to make sure you put sudo allow OpenSSH, and then we'll do UFW enable to enable our firewall. Once again, sudo, easy to forget that. And we'll hit yes. There we go. Now we're set up. Now if we do a UFW status, we should see OpenSSH allowed. Okay, so that is all set up. So first things first, let's install the packages we need. So we'll do a sudo apt update to make sure we have everything updated. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy in a line here, and this will be in the description if you want to go ahead and get it there. But what we're going to do here is we're going to install a few different packages, Python, some Python dev packages, Postgres, and some other things we need there, Nginx. We also install virtual env, so we can set our virtual environment. And you can just do Control-Shift-V there to paste that in and let this run. Okay, and now with that all done, next step will be to create the actual Postgres database we're going to use on this. So we'll do a sudo-u, and then by default you have a Postgres user to that's installed when you install Postgres. So we can use the -u to use this Postgres user to set our database up. And we can do psql to get like our interactive prompt. Okay, that should be fine. Then we can go ahead and just do a create database to create our database. We'll give it a name. I'll call it Django blog. Make sure you put a semicolon there, and then you should see create database. And then we can go ahead and create a user. So we'll do create user, and I'll call this user admin. And then we'll say with password, we'll give it a password, and I'm gonna give this user just a password. I'm gonna shut this instance down as soon as I finish this. So that's fine there, but you should probably pick a better password than that. Next, we want to go ahead and alter some roles. So we'll do alter role, and then we'll pick our user admin. And we'll do set client encoding to UTF-8. And then we'll go ahead and do set default transaction isolation to read committed. And then we'll go ahead and do a set time zone to UTC. Okay, and that should be all the roles we need set up there. And then finally, let's go ahead and grant all privileges to this admin user so they can actually have all the administrative access they need. Grant all privileges on database, and then we put our database name, in this case we call it Django blog, to our user, in this case admin. Okay, and now we can go ahead and exit out this prompt by doing a \q or /q, and press enter, and that will get us out of that prompt. And before we continue, you want to go into your project here, and if you go inside the blog tutorial, go inside your settings.py. You need to go to your database settings. You'll need to make a change here. So down here on your database settings, you want to set the engine to use the Postgres COPG2. The name should be the name of the blog of the database you just created. The user being the user you just created, the password being the password you added, and then the host being localhost, and then you can leave the port to an empty string. So make sure these changes are updated so that your application can actually use the database you just created. And with that done, we can come back here and we can go ahead and keep going with our setup. So next thing we'll do is we're going to go ahead and just clone down our project. So if we go back to the root of this project, we'll have that clone the code button. Get this line here. We'll copy that. We will come back to our project here. We'll run a git clone space Control-Shift-V and clone it down there. Do an ls. You'll see we have this AWS deployment folder. CD into AWS deployment, and there's our project. Okay, so now inside of here, we can go ahead and create a virtual environment. So we can do a virtual env space env, and then since we're on Linux here, we can do a source env/bin/activate to activate it. And now we can go ahead and install all of our dependencies. So we want to go ahead and do a pip install Django Gunicorn PSYCOPG2-binary, as well as the dependencies for this project, which would be Django crispy forms, Django tiny MCE, and crispy bootstrap 5. We'll go ahead and pip install all of those in this virtual environment. Now, another thing I forgot to do that we need to make sure we do is we need to go back to our app here, and we can go back to our instances, and we have our Django blog. We select this. We want to go down to Elastic IPs. We want to go ahead and associate Elastic IP, and we will go to allocate. We'll leave all this the same. Go to allocate, and then we can go ahead and associate this IP. Select this IP here, associate, instance, and choose our Django blog or whatever you called it, instance, and associate. Now, what this will do is this will give us an IP address that will persist even if we start or stop our instance. Every instance has an IP address by default, but if we were to stop the state, change the state to stopped and start it again, that IP would change, which would cause problems with our application. So we want to make sure we have one we can use that won't change, and we can do that with this Elastic IP function here. So now we have this IP address added to our instance, and you click on it, come down to networking. You can see we should have, if I refresh the page here, we should have this IP address down here. And now our public IP should match here and here. So if I go ahead and select or copy this public IP address, I can then go down into our project here, jump into our settings again, and I can edit the file here by clicking this edit button. Of course, you can't do this on here, but if you're on your own project, make sure you edit it and you add in the IP address inside the allowed host. So inside the allowed host, we'll need to put our IP address, localhost, and if you have a domain name, add that here as well. But we'll make sure this is here, otherwise you'll get an error saying that host not allowed. So make sure you have that there. We'll commit those changes. Now with that set up, and our database set up, that is all you will need for this project. If you do use static files, you want to make sure you add this as well. You want to import OS and add os.pathojoin, base dir, and static for your static root. So I have that there as well in case you need that. But that should be all the changes we need right now for our project. Now, since we made a change, let's go ahead and pull those changes to do a git. And since we changed the IP address, we want to make sure we go back to our connect here and get the correct SSH line here. We'll copy that. We'll go ahead and paste that there. We'll do yes. And now we should be good to go. Okay. Go ahead and make this one more bigger. One more like that. Okay. So now here we can CD into our AWS deployment. And now we can do a git pull. And we should get our new settings file there. Okay, so now we should have our updated changes and we should be ready to keep going on this. So the next step will be to migrate our database changes over into this new Postgres database. So do an ls, you'll see we need to go into blog tutorial. And right here, we should have our manage.py. Okay, so now we can run Python 3 manage.py, make migrations. And it's giving an error saying, can't import Django. Let's go ahead and install our dependencies one more time. Oh, I need to actually activate the virtual environment. That's what it is. Okay, so source env bin /activate. Okay, now we can go ahead and cd back into blog tutorial and we can run that line again. Okay, no changes, and we'll go ahead and run Python manage.py migrate as well. And that migrates all of our changes over, including all these blog changes as well. Okay, now with that done, we need to go ahead and make a super user so we can log into our admin page. So we'll do a Python 3 manage.py create super user. We'll give him a username of admin, give it a password as well. Okay, now with the user created, we can go ahead and run Python 3 manage.py collect static. You may not need to do this depending on how your project is, but we'll go ahead and just do it in case you need to do it. Now let's go ahead and allow the 8000 port so we can test things and make sure things work the way they should work. So do a sudo ufw allow 8000. And that should be set up there. And now to test out our project, make sure it's running the way it should, we can run a Python 3 manage.py run server. You can do a 0.0.0.0:8000. And it runs the project there. Let's go ahead and jump back into our browser. Let's go ahead and get that IP address. So you come back here, find the IP address, the public IP, which is right here. Copy that over here and paste it there at port 8000. And there we go. Now we don't have anything in our database, so it's all just empty, but our project is being hosted correctly. So we know everything's set up. We can actually run this project, which is good. So now we can go ahead and actually set up Gunicorn and our Nginx stuff to actually host it correctly now. Okay, now that we have that tested, we know it's working, we can go ahead and work on adding the server config stuff with Nginx. So what we'll do here, actually, before we take a step further, let's run this again. And let's go back to our Django blog here, refresh the page, and it still works. Let's go to the admin page real quick, /admin. And we'll go ahead and log into the admin page. And then we'll jump into articles, and we'll add a new article. Test article, just so we have some stuff in our database we can use. So we'll do admin, we'll select alike, we'll save. Now we go view site, and there it is. Okay, so we have just some data here, so it's not just blank. Now we can go ahead and let's add some stuff to our server here to make it to host the website through Nginx. So first things first, we're going to deactivate our virtual environment. We don't need that anymore. Deactivate. And then we'll go ahead and create the systemd socket and the service files for Gunicorn. So we'll do a sudo nano etc/systemd/system/gunicorn.socket. And then we'll need to put a few things in here. We need to put a unit, and this will be a description equaling to Gunicorn socket. And then we'll go ahead and do a socket section here. And this will be listen stream equaling /run/gunicorn.sock. install, and this will be wanted by equaling sockets.target, and that should be it. Control O, enter, Control X. And then we'll do a sudo nano etc /systemd /system / gunicorn.service. And this service file will have another unit section. So do unit. And this will specify our metadata and dependencies. So we can go ahead and do a description equaling to Gunicorn daemon. And then we can do requires equals gunicorn.socket. And then we'll do after equaling network.targets. Then we'll set up the unit section again, or not the unit section, the service section again. And in this case, we need to specify the user, the group, and the working directory in the executable start command. So we can create our service section here. And first we'll set what user we want to use. In this case, we're going to use Ubuntu, just the user we've been using for this tutorial. Then we want to put the group. We want to set this equal to www-data. Then we want to do a working directory. And this will be set to /home/Ubuntu /AWS-deployment /blog tutorial. And then our exec start, we'll set this to the Gunicorn file inside our virtual environment. So this will be exec start equals /home/Ubuntu /AWS-deployment. And I believe the env is in here, so do env/bin/gunicorn. And then we'll go ahead and put this in separate lines. We'll do a /, we'll do -- access log file dash with another / here. And then we'll do -- workers 3 -- bind, and we'll bind it with Unix :run/gunicorn.sock. And then finally, last step here is to put the name of your WSGI file. In this case, for this example, it's blog tutorial. If you don't know what that is, you can find it inside of the same directory that your settings.py is in. You should be able to find the name of there. I mean, it should be just the name of your whatever you created your app name to be, that root folder, it should be that name. So it's blogtutorial.wsgi :application. Okay, and finally, we add an install section. And the install section is used to tell systemd what to link it to if you enable it when you boot your computer or boot the server. In this case, we want to just set to the regular multi-user system whenever that is up and running. So we'll do wanted by equals multi-user.target, and that should be it. We'll go ahead and do Control O, Control X to get out of there. And then now with those files created, let's go ahead and use systemctl to start and enable this. When you use start, this will just start it up right now, and enable will enable it to start automatically on boot. So we can do a sudo systemctl start gunicorn.socket to start it. And then we can run the same thing, but instead of start, we'll do enable to enable it on boot, just like that, and it creates a symlink. There we go. Now, if we run the command sudo systemctl status at Gunicorn socket, you'll see that we have it's active, so it's up and running, and everything worked out like it should. If this says like error or something, you'll need to go back through and fix the errors. And then we also want to go ahead and check for the gunicorn.sock file that should have been created. So we can do a file /run/gunicorn.sock, and the file is found there. If it's not found, it'll say file not found right here. So if it doesn't say that, we know if the file is created, which is good. If you have any errors, you can run sudo journalctl -u gunicorn.socket, and that will give you any sort of logs there, maybe a possible error message. So try running that if you run into any issues. And then if you do fix something, make sure to run sudo systemctl daemon-reload. Run that, and also run sudo systemctl restart Gunicorn. So make sure if you have any issues, you can run those to restart things if you do make changes. But since ours is working fine here, let's go ahead and move on to the next step. The next step here will be to just test the gunicorn.service. So we started off the gunicorn.socket, but we didn't actually do anything with the .service, the gunicorn service yet. And that will not be active yet because we haven't sent or hasn't received any connections yet. And we can test this by doing sudo systemctl status gunicorn. And you'll see right here it's saying inactive, which means that it has not got a connection yet, so we haven't actually tested if it works correctly yet. But we can test this by doing a curl --unix -socket run /gunicorn.sock localhost. And it looks like we got an error there. Let's see here, curl -units. I'm gonna go ahead and just copy it in here. Okay, so it looks like we might have a problem. So we run sudo systemctl status gunicorn, we should be able to see what's happening here. So okay, so there's an issue with one of our arguments. Let's go ahead and double check what I typed there. I might have put something in there wrong. So we'll go back to our nano, sudo nano, the gunicorn service here. And it looks like the issue might be in our exec start. So let's go ahead and double check that real quick. So we have our path here, and then we're doing a --. Oh, here's the problem. So I put -log -file. This should be -log file. Workers 3 bind Unix. The rest of that looks good, I think. So make sure you don't put a dash in between log and file. That was just a typo there. So now we can go ahead and run. Where is it? I'll just type it back in, I guess. We'll do a sudo systemctl daemon-reload, and then we'll run sudo systemctl restart Gunicorn. Okay, now if we run that curl command, there we go. So if you get this output back with just the HTML of that page, you know this worked correctly. And now if we were to check again, we check right here the status of the Gunicorn service. We'll see now it is active and is running. So now we know this is all working correctly. And we can move on to the next step. And so next step is to configure Nginx, the proxy paths to Gunicorn. And so we'll need to set up a server block to do this. And the way we'll do this here is we will do a sudo nano etc Nginx sites available / and I'll create one called I'll call it Django blog. And I'll create a server block. We write server and put some open and close curly braces here, and then we'll do a listen on port 80, and then we'll do a server name and set this to the IP address here. So we go back to networking. We have our public IPv4 address. We'll copy that. Then we will come back here and we'll paste that in there. Now, if you have a domain name, you want to add it here as well. Put a space and then put whatever your domain name is right here. But for this case, all we have is just the IP address, so we'll leave it like that for now. Next, we want to add some different locations. So we want to go ahead and ignore any problems of finding a favicon. We also want to make sure we can locate our static files directory. And then we also want to include an additional one for all other requests. So we'll start with the first one. So we'll do location equals /favicon.ico. Then we'll do access log off, log not found off, like that. And then we'll go ahead and do a location of /static / and this one will be the last one here, which is root /home /Ubuntu /AWS deployment / blog tutorial. So all we're doing here is telling it where the static root is, and when we do collect static, we'll create a static folder in the root for a project, which is located in home Ubuntu AWS deployment blog tutorial. So that's where all the files are located there. So that one's set up, and that's all we need there. Next, we want to go ahead and put our final location block here, which goes just to a / here, which goes to all other requests. So we can just do this and close off these curly braces here. And we'll go ahead and do include proxy params, and then we'll do proxy pass and do http Unix :/run /gunicorn.sock, like that. And that should be it. Just double check it real quick. I think that all looks good. You can go ahead and just do Control O, enter Control X, and then we can go ahead and create the symlink we need. So once we create the file in sites available, to actually enable it, we have to create a symlink into sites enabled. And we can do that by doing a sudo ln-s, do etc/nginx /sites available /Django blog, I think I called it. And then we'll do a space, do /etc/nginx /sites -enabled. Now we'll create the symlink there. We can do a sudo nginx -t to test the syntax, and we got no errors. If you have any errors here, you'll need to go back through and follow the steps to refollow those steps and check for any errors, and then make sure you go ahead and restart everything once you make any changes. But now that there's no errors, let's go ahead and restart Nginx by doing a sudo systemctl restart Nginx. Okay, and now with it restarted, let's go ahead now and do a sudo ufw delete allow 8000, and then we'll do a sudo ufw allow Nginx full. Okay. And now with that done, let's go. We should be able to see it in the browser now. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. Let's come here, and now we can go ahead and do the same IP address, but let's get rid of the port number, and it loads just fine. So now we can get to our posts. The data is still here. We can like it and unlike it. Everything's working like it should, and it's running on that EC2 instance. Let's go ahead and double check our admin page, and you'll see here now we're getting an issue because our admin page, the CSS has gone down. Now, the way we can fix this is by going into our terminal, and we can sudo nano one more file. So do sudo nano etc/nginx /nginx.conf. And then this first line here, this user line right here, where it's set to www-data, we can change this here to Ubuntu. And then we can go ahead and just do a sudo restart Nginx. And then we come here, refresh the page, and now our styles are back. So if you have the error where the styles aren't showing up, make sure you sudo nano /etc/nginx /nginx.conf and change the user to the user that we're using for this whole tutorial, and that should fix that problem for you. If you check like in the network tab, you should be getting like 403 errors. So changing the user there will resolve those 403 errors for you. And that is really it. Now we have everything hosted and it's working. And this was a very simple deployment, just using an EC2 instance. We could do a more complicated thing using like RDS and Elastic Beanstalk or something else. If you want to see a more complicated deployment with different AWS services, let me know. I can make another video. But I'll stop here for this video. Hopefully this gets you started with hosting a Django project on an EC2 instance. All of the code will be in the description below, as well as links that might help you. I'll try to put some commands that might be helpful for troubleshooting in the description below as well. If you have any other questions, let me know. But that is it. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.